Welcome back to the workshop, everybody. My name is Tim. So today we're going to kind of go over my experience with these extruders, or the inconsistency experience that is these extruders. So this one was one that was ordered fairly recently. I actually have its twin sitting in a box just off camera here. And this one, at a glance, appears to be just fine. The alignment between the drive gear and the idler pulley looks good. Everything looks to be seated. There's lots of clearance inside there between the heat sink and the drive gear. But the one that was on the Foundry Special was not that way. It was more akin to this one, where everything's kind of just jam-packed together. So we're going to take this one apart and take a good look at it, see what's going on inside here. But you can tell already tell there's a problem when the heat sink is not seated down properly. Okay. Oh, that's not even attached. Lovely. That explains why it's being such a butthead. Alright. So it looks like this was put on there not too bad of a position. It just needs to shift down a little bit. Grab this little tiny Allen wrench. Alright. Where? So right here, what we need to do is we need to flip the drive gear over. So we're going to pull that off. Just flip it over. That allows us a lot greater range. So now we should be able to just line it up right about there. Okay. So as it sits now, it's just down just a little bit from this front face. I mean, there's a pretty good gap right there, but it'll also line up really good on this idler here. So it's almost dead center on the idler. Alright, now we're going to get this assembled here. And you want this to be able to float freely, just like that is there. So we're going to back that out, drop this spring in, and I'm going to thread it back in just enough to engage the nut without actually putting it. So now we're just getting a little tension on it there. But as you can see, we got good consistent alignment across the face of there, and if you look at it from this side, we got lots of room between where the heat sink's going to mount up. So this one is in much better shape. But next we're going to actually take the hot end portion of it apart and see what lies beneath there. So I'm just going to unthread this whole piece off of here. Alright, and we need to get this nozzle out. Nozzle came apart really nicely. Here, let's see what's. It's a different style heat break than I've seen before. On this one, it actually looks like they got the PTFE tube cut correctly. So what I found is where this tube mates up here, the PTFE will actually be recessed a little bit when it's pushed all the way into the nozzle. This one actually looks like it is good to go. And that is the wrong nozzle. Why is there a 0.3 in there? Okay, so I'm gonna go find a 0.4 millimeter nozzle because that's what this is getting set up with. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna swap this out for this other tube. So this one here, it has a larger diameter piece of PTFE in there. It all threads in the same, but this is a piece of tube you can get readily available. But however, this one's a little too short, so I'll push this one out. If I could get it pushed out. The reason I'm doing it like I am is you can buy this roll of PTFE for dirt cheap. So yeah, shove it all the way in there till it's seated. Then come back here with the razor knife. I'm going to cut it off a little big, and then where I have a little bit of control, come in here and just trim it up completely flat and flush with the end of the tube there. Okay. Now something else we're going to check while we're here, we're going to pull this little sleeve off, and on the underside here is a little set screw. We want to make sure that set screw is good and tight. Okay, set screw is good because once we get this back together, we won't really have access to it. So I want to make sure that's good to go. All right, now we're going to take and thread our nozzle in, leaving it just a little bit proud of the underside here. So that'll make it a lot easier to tension later. And we'll show you where we're setting it to. Okay, so it's got just a little bit of a gap on the end here. That'll allow you to, once the tube's in place and this is oriented correct, just give it that last little nudge to seat it all the way home. Otherwise you'll end up with a leaky nozzle. So if you get this thing and you run it all the way down until it's flush like this, it'll end up leaking. So let's get this sleeve back on. Get this loaded in so you guys won't be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's about like where we were for the demo. So then we put the PTFE tube in, or the heat break tube with the PTFE. I'm going to run that till it's snug. Okay. Now that's snug. Just give this nozzle here a little bit of a tweak. Alright. Now, we'll have to double check this when we actually warm up the hot end for the first time, but that'll be another day. So now I got my jam nut back on. And one more thing we are going to check is that the nozzle path is clear. So we're going to run one of these little 0.4 millimeter drill bits down the center, so this one's nice and clear. And now we just got to put it back together. Now my preference is to have it where this metal piece is just is flush or just a little bit recessed. But see, now that's recessed a little too far, so we'll just err the other way around where it's just coming up just a hair. Okay. All right. So now we've actually shifted a little bit. But fortunately, we still have a little bit of adjustment left in the nozzle. Okay. You don't have to get this super tight, but it has to be tight enough where it doesn't want to move or do anything funky. Alright. And now we can reassemble the fan. So if you notice, there's actually a little hole in the backside here for this shaft to drop through. But not big enough of a gap to put a full Now the first time I upgraded one of my other printers, which was some time ago, to this all metal style of extruder, it just had a drilled and reamed hole right here, and they more recently started putting a threaded hole there, which is the same M6 threaded as this Bowden tube coupler will give you, but instead of having that sharp edge in there, what I decided to do is get a Bowden tube coupler like this, and then I was just taking a little short piece of the Bowden tube and poking it in there for a little bit of strain relief. Actually, I'm going to put a slightly longer piece than that. Just add to a little bit more of the longevity of or reliability of the printer. So you end up where you're not accidentally breaking the filament off in the course of normal operation, because it just has that little bit of something extra to hold it in place. So this one is basically ready to go into service. The only thing I'll have to do, I will have to take this back loose and for when it gets mounted onto its housing, but nothing but a thing. This, like I said, this one's ready to go. And we're going to take a quick little peek at this one. I've not opened this one yet, so this is a brand new to me extruder. And this one, they actually had the hot end and the extruder as separate units. Okay. So yeah, probably the exact same heat sink. And so here we go. The gap on that is awful close, and it almost looks like it's out of alignment with the idler wheel there. You probably can't see it very well, but yeah, down in the hole there, it's right on the back edge. So I'm going to flip this around just like we did the other, or I guess no, it's already flipped around. I'm just going to roll it and loosen it so I can make it line up nicely. I'll just pull that spring out, would be the easiest way to get access. Okay. And actually, now I'm looking at it, neither one of those lined up properly with the keyway, so it's really only been held in place by one set screw. Okay, again, we're in good alignment, so I got that one. I always like to do the one on the flat first, because then it'll center it up really nicely if it's loose on the other one. Alright, so now we got the drive gear in a good spot. Let's double check this little guy is nice and tight. That one's nice and tight. Make sure this one's nice and tight, which it is. Now we can reload this spring assembly in. Just this tensioning screw down so we're for sure making contact. Okay, now we're making contact. Alright. That one's basically ready to go on that portion. We're going to take a look at the hot end while we're here. So, and here we go. This one is recessed back just a little bit, and it's not much, but it's just enough to cause problems when we go to put it into service. I actually had a fairly small gap on one for the fountain, and that just fell right out. It's super loose. Okay, again we're going to shove the tube all the way in there. We're going to cut it off a little bit proud. Make sure it's all the way seated, and cut it off flush. Now we're nice and flush again. Put that back together, which actually it'll go in like such. We should have a 0.4 millimeter nozzle floating around here somewhere. That's what this is. Yep. So this is a 0.4 millimeter. Alright, again we're going to set our gap. That's where it's just going to live. So this one is basically ready to go into service just like the other one. So I'm going to leave these two pieces separate just because I'm going to have to separate them anyway when I go to assemble it onto the frame. But mission done. So yeah, we had problems we found with both of them. This one was definitely worse than the other, but this one still wasn't quite right. So I'm glad I took the time to go through it. I have another one that I got to do, and I'll do that one off camera. But unfortunate downside of some of these components, you have to go through and verify everything is correct.